It's a joy to be able to talk to you about strategic planning. And let me say that the documents that you have in front of you is exactly the way Midway USA does our strategic planning. So we are practitioners, and I'm also a teacher, if you would. The slideshow is basically going to cover what you see there. In my experience, you learn more by asking questions and getting answers than you do just by me making a presentation. So we're going to go through each slide, but I'm frankly interested any time for you all to interrupt and say, Larry, why do you do it this way, or how does this work, or whatever. The first thing I'd like to do is to make it very clear that I believe that America needs Baldrige, and every leader in every organization has a responsibility to America to improve the performance in your organization. And I don't know any way you can get that. You can't go to Harvard and come back and improve your organization. You really have to start doing the things that you all know are right, which are the leadership and management principles. That was from the handout this morning. And Baldrige is the only tool in my 34 years in business that I've ever found that helps our organization as an organization improve. So America needs Baldrige. America needs you to take Baldrige into your organizations and improve your productivity, improve your performance for America. Otherwise, you're going to be using a different currency sometime in the future than a dollar bill. And I know you don't want to do that. You heard me talk about Baldrige Performance Excellence Groups. One of the ways that we are sustaining the Baldrige program inside Midway is by creating a tool, if you would, for us to continue to teach and continue to learn. So a lot of the Midway people are speaking at the Baldrige Performance Excellence Group there in Columbia. I encourage you to start those back home. They're really, really easy to do. The booklets tell you exactly how to start them and how to run them. It's just a monthly meeting. We have 11 monthly meetings a year, but it'll help you grow as a Baldrige player. It'll help the whole organization grow. It'll improve your community, and that will improve your state and ultimately improve America. So I hope you'll take that very seriously. Anybody coming in that needs a handout, if you'll raise your hand when you come in and get my attention, we'll get you a handout. I want to give myself a little bit of credibility here, so I'm going to show you maybe 3 quick slides. This is what's happened to Midway USA sales since we got started in Baldrige. So that's the sales, the projected on the end. You can see inserts there, 2004. We really got started looking at Baldrige. Missouri Quality Award at 8, the Baldrige Award at 9. The Baldrige Award isn't the peak of your success. It is just a milestone in your success. So you can see what projected sales are in 10, 11, and 12. Net income, sales are nice, but there's nothing quite like net income if you're an owner in a company. So you can see what's happening there in terms of the growth in the net income. And again, you can see kind of where it started up in 2004 when we started getting serious. And here's an interesting, this is productivity. This is the total employee cost into the total sales dollars and profit dollars both. So profits down at the bottom in yellow and sales up at the top. But you can see how we are improving, how we weren't improving our performance, and our profit per employee or sales per employee was going down, or per employee dollar. That is a terrible, terrible indicator. That's not something you normally measure, but if your indicators are all telling you that you're going south, then by golly, your goals, your results are going to go south on you. So a great, great thing, I'd encourage you all to measure that, go back and start measuring it, because it's really, really important. This is the cover of your strategic planning document, and I'd like for you to take a look at it. We created this there at Midway, so it's not something we clipped off of the internet, but always at the end of the highway is your vision. What exactly is it that you want? And it's your vision. In our case, we want to be the best run business in America. Okay, Larry, how are you going to get there? Well, strategic planning is the only way that you're going to head toward your vision. I don't know any other way to get there. And that's the reason I always say you've got to have a grand vision, because if you don't have a grand vision, you maybe don't even need a strategic planning process because you don't have any place you want to go. So I want to go toward that vision. You see improvement down the left side, and it kind of gets fuzzy as you go. You see now the future going down through there. And then you see the modern leadership and management principles down the middle of the highway. That, in my mind, is just a super-duper depiction of how you get what you want. You have to start with what you want, and what you want is the vision. That gets you there. And it's just a systematic, methodical process year after year after year. As long as you work, as long as you live, you have to do planning. You have to do serious planning. So this is our first slide, and this is where I'll begin to entertain questions. If you look across the top of your handout, you'll see that the top block of stuff is all in gray. All across the top, that gray area is setting the direction. And so there's 3 different tiers in there. They're setting the direction, and then you've got to go and get things churned out and get your plan developed, and you got to get it deployed. But let's talk about setting the direction first. Every one of those steps in there is a step that we do. And I am not personally involved as a CEO in the nuts and bolts of strategic planning. But I am keenly involved as a CEO in setting the direction, because that's my job, and if I don't do that, then they don't need me as a CEO. So all across the top there, those are things that Matt Fleming, our president, and myself do really to set the direction of the organization. And we're going to cover those. But the first thing we do is to validate the mission statements. It's still current. We changed the mission statement this month. We made a little tweak in the mission. We made a little tweak in the vision. But we changed the mission statement this month. The board of directors owns a mission statement, so we've got to go get to them for permission. I'm the chairman of the board, but I won't always be in that relationship. So we believe that the mission statement is too important to delegate to the CEO. So if CEO wants to change the mission statement, fine, write it up the way you want to, ask the board for permission. So we validate the mission statement. You can see who's involved there, and everyone will tell you that. We validate the stakeholders. Those don't change from year to year. That's not a big deal. If you're not going to change the mission statement, it's nothing to do. These are steps in the process that you have to do even if there's nothing to do. So the key stakeholders are still the same as they were before: the customers, the employees, the vendors, and the shareholders. And we validate the goals. And frankly, if the key stakeholders don't change, then the goals don't change. Our goals are customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, vendor satisfaction, and shareholder satisfaction. And from year to year to year, they don't change. If you're going to change a mission, if you're going to incorporate some new key stakeholders, then you're going to have some new goals. But otherwise, they're just there. And you can see there that the board of directors owns the goals. The board says you will satisfy these stakeholders. But the performance levels are set down lower than that. Then, what do the key stakeholders want? I believe you have in the insert there, here are your company goals. And for each goal, each customer, each stakeholder group, customer satisfaction, they have 12 key requirements. So what we want to do each year as part of setting the direction is to validate those key requirements. Baldrige will not let you think you know what key stakeholders want. Baldrige requires you to validate it. So we do that. And while it says there that the CEO and the board do that, likely we get some support from the marketing department or the quality department on that. But we do validate the requirements to make sure they're right. Excuse me, because we measure every one of those. So if you identify it as a requirement, then you certainly have to measure it to make sure that that you're delivering on it. First is the customers, and then the other key stakeholders we do too. This happens in January of every year, as you can see that, setting the direction. Pretty simple stuff to do. We look at the results, Matt Fleming and I do, and this is based on all the requirements. Did we last year deliver the results that we wanted? Now, we've been looking at results every month. It's not like that once a year you look at results. But we sit down and seriously say, did we do what we said we were going to do all of last year in terms of meeting key stakeholder requirements? And if you weren't, then that needs to be a flag that goes up. Fortunately for us, every year we do. But we do look at the results and just one more time validate them. And that helps us understand if we want to put some emphasis anywhere that we weren't putting it before. We create the company strategies then. And you're going to have a strategy of increasing the rate of growth, increasing the amount of profit, increasing customer satisfaction, buying something, selling something, whatever you might think that your absolute top level strategies might be. We do that. So those are the strategies that are going to help with decision making. We do a SWOT analysis. Okay? And this is just absolutely top level. This is not down in a department. We're not anticipating that there's going to be a lot of snow this year and we have to buy more salt to put on the highway. That's done much farther down. But we're looking at the top, what's going on in the world, in our world, and in our organization that would affect our ability to deliver customer satisfaction and other stakeholder satisfaction into the future. So that's the SWOT analysis that we do. Then we create the strategic objectives. That's a tough, tough thing to understand in Baldrige. What in the world is a strategic objective? But I'll tell you how we came to that. It's an interesting thing. I was listening to the presidential, this was in 2008, and they were interviewing one of the presidential candidates about the vice president. And the question was, well, what is the role of the vice president? That was the question that the media person asked. And the answer was, well, the role of the vice president is to help the president set the national priorities. And I thought, oh my gosh, now I understand what strategic objectives are. They are the national priorities. What are the single most important things to the organization? Those are your strategic objectives. It happened that we had a strategic planning meeting the following morning, but I had brainstormed kind of in my mind for the nation, on a national level, if I were President of the United States, what would be the national priorities? Oh my gosh, I think there are 16 departments, cabinet level people. So all 16 of those people, of course, think that they were first. But how many national priorities could there be? So I kind of brainstormed. I came up with 10 or 12 just in my own mind, and I played that out with the senior leadership team the next day. I was still involved in the strategic planning process at that time because I was both president and CEO. And I got 10 or 15 things from them. But if you think about the national priorities, if you were in charge of America, what would be your number one priority, your number two, your number three? I don't propose to put any ideas into your head. But as an organization, you have exactly the same issue as the CEO of the senior leadership team. What are the national priorities of your organization? Is it to increase sales? Is it to increase profits? Is it to sustain a division? Is it to spin something off? There would be your national priorities. And every year they're maybe the same as they were before, they may be different. But you really have to set your national priorities each year because nobody knows what your national priorities are if you don't figure out what they are. And I bet we couldn't agree on the number one national priority for America. We'd probably be divided about in half. We're not going to try that. Now, we are finished with that whole top row of setting the direction. And I'd like to entertain some questions on there about how that process works. Setting the direction and who's involved in it. So look that whole top row over, all the gray areas up there. And see if you can ask some questions. Otherwise, I'm presuming you all believe everything I'm saying and you're going to start doing it tomorrow at your place. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that your board, you want to change the mission somewhere. These things have to come before the board. Who makes up your board? What is that background that they would have to acknowledge? Is it some of your wife is probably on the board. But what makes up your board?
The board of directors is Brenda, myself, we're the two shareholders, our son and our daughter. Son is 36. He's the CEO of a spinoff business out of Midway a few years back. And our daughter is 34, and she works in the Potterfield group, which is the overall administration.
They have good knowledge of Midway.
Yes, they're both well educated. They've both been there all their lives. We've struggled. The Missouri Quality Award people, when they came in, wrote us up for not having an outside board of directors. And I thought, okay. And I've always considered it. When the Baldrige people came in, I sat down right after the opening meeting and I said, look, Missouri wrote us up for this and we don't think it's any of their business. The two owners of the company, Brenda and I, do not want an outside board. If the owners of the company don't want an outside board, no outside agency can force them to have an outside board. And I said, I think they erred in doing this. I don't know what the two ladies thought one from NIST and one was the team lead. I don't know what they thought about it, but we didn't get written up for not having an outside board. So I have struggled with how you get an outside board. It's easy to put one together, but everybody says, Larry, you have to spend time with your outside board regularly so they're up to speed and know what you're doing there so they can give you advice. And I think, I don't have any time to spend with outside board. I'm serving customers. I don't know that's a dilemma for Midway. Our son is qualified to run the organization tomorrow if something would happen to me, so I feel like we've got great sustainability. But that is the board, and then keenly qualified to provide assistance on how we would move forward. When I give up the CEO position, then the board becomes more important because I'll still be on the board, But about the only authority the board has, real authority, is to fire the CEO. You can't direct the CEO what to do. That's what you hire a CEO to do. But if you own the mission statement and you own the goals, and you hire a CEO to deliver the goals based on the mission statement, then the CEO either delivers or they don't. So there would never be a CEO that would not understand what was required of them because it's all very well documented. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So other questions on that top row? Yes, ma'am.
So looking at your setting the direction in the month of January, do you do this in a series of meetings? Do you do a 2-day retreat? How do you accomplish this in the month of January?
Good question. Is it one meeting or is it a bunch? I'm a keen fan of iterations. Everything that I have ever been involved in that has turned out to anything is based on one iteration after the other. It's first draft, second draft, third draft. I'm not smart enough to figure out what to do the first time. So Matt Fleming is our president. He and I meet every Monday afternoon for a couple of hours, just the CEO and the president talking about the future and what's going on. We don't get too much involved in operations because we have other meetings to do that. And we're basically are required, and the quality manager, vice president of quality, reminds us of what our responsibility is and what our deadlines are. But we go through that either in those meetings. We get to travel a little bit in the first quarter of the year to some of the key conservation group shows, and we're able to go through all that and be on exactly the same page. Whether it's the right page or not, you don't know, but we're on exactly the same page in terms of what those strategic objectives are, and turn them into the senior leadership team then who does the strategic planning. Yes, sir.
If I were to see an organization chart of your company, what would it look like, and how many employees do you have, how many divisions do you have, and how do you feed the bottom-up input from your employees if it's a large corporation?
I think that's two questions. I'm going to answer the first one about the org chart, and then we'll get into the communications. A very, very classic organization. I serve as the chairman and the CEO. We have some other businesses, not as substantial as Midway, that I also serve as the CEO on, or the chairman. The president of the company, then all the senior leadership team reports to the president. So I don't have all these direct reports. I gave up 2 years ago when I gave up the presidency, because the president has to have the corner office, the president has to have the senior leadership team, because that's where everything gets done. Under the senior leadership team, under most of them are managers, and under the managers are supervisors, and under the supervisors are the hourly staff. So it's what I call a very classic organization. We have 2 facilities in Columbia, Missouri, but one's just down the street from the other. The contact center is away from the rest of the business. There are about 350 employees in the organization. We did $200 million in 2010, so we'll do 10% or 15% more than that this year. It's a very simple organization compared to what a lot of you folks might deal with in terms of multiple facilities, multiple divisions, and stuff like that. The challenges, I think, are exactly the same. In terms of how we get information from the bottom, let me talk about communication and innovation, I think would be the 2 processes we have. We manage for innovation. We have a formal managing for innovation process, and we have a formal communications process. Communication is how we get information to our people all the way to the bottom. Tomorrow morning I have a State of the Business meeting, and State of the Business is a 3-hour meeting, off-site, senior leadership team, and all the middle managers are there, and we do some recognition and rewards in that, so we invite some other people in. I get maybe 12 minutes to talk there. The president talks, senior leaders do the rest of the talking. We deploy the strategic plan out at that time, and the results of the work. We would already be working on the 2011 strategic plan in terms of executing it, but we're also building the 2012 strategic plan. So we're communicating that. We have a formal call for innovation there. This time we have asked for innovation in 2 specific areas. I can't remember what they are. I think one of them is grow the business. We're looking just for ideas here on how to grow the business. But that's the middle of the organization we're dealing with. Then next week there will be all employee meetings called department knowledge sharing, where the department heads that have been in those meetings share everything that happened in those meetings then with the hourly employees, the middle supervisory staff. So we're communicating, and at the same time we're calling for innovation. You'll see the innovation bucket there. All the ideas we get go into there. So they will specifically collect innovative ideas tomorrow and then next week, And a lot of them are going to be just garbage, okay? So you're not going to, it's not like you ask for ideas, you get 20 ideas, they're all good. If you can get one good idea out of something like that, that'd be great. We're able to do 15 or 20 things a year, 15 or 20 action plans a year. We want to do more, but frankly, that's all we can get done. They're serious action plans. There's lots of smaller ones that get done down departments, but cross-functional things, that's what it would be. So that's how we get innovation from the bottom, is we ask for it specifically. We have a formal suggestion program, too, that gets ideas. We do very good with engaging employees all through the organization. When I walk through, I know most of the employees, or they know me. They all know who I am. I may not know them by first name, but they know me. And so regularly we get ideas, walking around and then formally requesting them. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Another question about this top line of how we literally set the direction in the organization. Yes, ma'am.
How many years out do you look? You touched on 2011 plan, 2012. Do you look out 3 years, 5 years, or are you very specific to the next 12 months?
Baldrige wants you to focus on the future. They don't really tell you what the future is. But everything out in front of you is the future. The real challenge in strategic planning in our organization, I think the improvements we make are fairly simple improvements. It might require 600 hours of programming and information systems. It might require moving something or whatever, but it's not like we're going to build a new division. It's not like Caterpillar saying, okay, we've got to set up a new plant over here. So our life is simpler than what a really big organization would be. But the stuff that we're doing in 2012 is the stuff that this is 11. The stuff we're doing in 11 is the stuff we can do. So what we're executing in 11 is the stuff that last year we agreed to execute in 11. Okay, so in your planning process, the question is, what are you going to do next year? So in 2010, we identified 15 or 20 things that we were going to do in 2011. We'd like to do in 10, but we can't. What do we do with everything else? We punt. Because if you're not going to get my attention now, you're not going to get it. So the stuff that can't get into one of those 15 or 20 buckets is not going to be done in the next year. Is that my mic is doing that? Okay, good. So everything else then goes into 2012, 13, or 14. So when you think about the buckets, there's a huge bucket. If you get an organization that starts innovating, they've just tons of things in those buckets. Here's next year's bucket. Here's the things that we can't do this year, but we really think we want to do next year. Well, here you are in the middle of 2010 saying what you're probably going to do in 12 and 13. Well, but you're not committing. And when you get into 2011, you're emptying that bucket out on the table, and some of them you're reaching into 13 and you're taking those ideas. Because you just simply can't do all the things you want to do. But we look at 1 year to execute plans. Everything else gets dumped in. And then we think about things in the future. My primary responsibility at the senior executive level is capacity. Do we have the capacity? Will we have the place to work in the future? Will we have the capital to work in the future? That's my primary responsibility. I'm thinking much longer than what I call just the basic organizational strategic plan of getting things better all the time. Yes, sir, in the back.
I was looking to where that you have in your innovation bucket is vendors. Do y'all manufacture your products, or do you all buy and resell?
The Midway USA company is a pure distributor. We manufacture nothing. In year 2000, we spun off a division that did manufacture stuff or design product and to have it built. But we haven't done that, so we spun that off. Our son Russell is the CEO of that business of design build. So Midway USA is strictly a distributor. We buy from 700 different vendors, and we resell that then to 1 million different customers, if you would.
So
Yes,
in
sir.
that process, then, part of your strategic planning is working with your vendors at the same time that you have to have your vendors supplying your product. So in your strategic planning, do y'all forecast your sales and your purchases from them?
We certainly forecast our sales every year as part of our budgeting process and as part of our strategic planning process, and that starts early in the year, sometime in first quarter, I think. That's in level 2. The nature of our industry is that no one comes to us and asks us to forecast sales. So we're in a hobby industry, the shooting sports industry. We don't, we deal with Remington and Winchester, but those are pretty large companies, but they frankly don't ask us to forecast our purchases from them. So no, we don't do that. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there a process of employing the core values and ensuring that those are values that you're
Is there a process for deploying core values? The core values are part of our mission statement, and the mission statement is hung in 30 different locations all through the organization. Anytime we change the document, we make a party out of it. So we go rehang those 30 different documents, and either the president or myself will meet with everybody in the organization and tell them what we've changed and why. In terms of redeploying those values, I don't think we have a process to redeploy them other than the fact that they're posted. Yes, ma'am.
How many changes have you made to the core values?
Changes to which document?
The core values since they were established?
I'll tell you though, the world isn't very good at helping you understand what a mission statement is. And I'm sorry about that. Just what exactly is a vision? And you go start Googling up vision statement, purpose statement, mission statement, you just get tons and tons of hits, but you will not find any two people that agree on anything. So you have to figure that out for yourself. In my opinion, Midway USA has put more thought into a mission statement than any other company in America. If you want to be the best run business in America, probably it starts with a mission statement, and how much time would you spend there? So I believe that ours is a best practices mission statement that I can stand in front of anybody and argue or present that yours ought to be the same as this, and it does a great job of communicating. So now you get into the values, and I can tell you that we probably changed the values 10 times or something like that. In the old days, we had personal values in there. We had honesty and integrity. Well, that's garbage. Those are personal values. They're not organizational values, but nobody teaches you that anywhere. What organizational values drive your organization? If you're not honest, you're not going to work at Midway. We don't need to put that down as a value. That's in our code of conduct. So code of conduct is the personal values that we say, if you're not a player here, you can't stay. But organizational values then would be what I call Baldrige values. How do you run the organization? I think that's all there on our mission statement, those organizational values. You can play with that stuff 40 ways to Sunday. You're not going to get a lot of money out of it. But let me look at that document just for a second.
You got honesty and integrity on there.
I'm sorry.
As a core value.
What I just said wasn't right. That, I think, was a compromise for us. But the real key ones are commitment to serving customers, respect for all stakeholders, friendly, helpful, courteous behavior, focus on results, accountability, creative value, learning, continuous improvement. I think that was a compromise to put honesty and integrity on there because personally, those are code of conduct. If you don't have that, you don't work there. You shouldn't work anywhere in America. I think you should be in jail if you don't have honesty and integrity. Thank you very much. Okay, did that answer your question? Yes, ma'am.
What would you say are your core competencies, and how do you integrate a review of your core competencies in your strategic planning process?
That was a real tough one to get core competencies nailed because when we first started, here you are in a senior leadership team, and you're saying, okay, let's brainstorm what our core competencies are. Well, there's 15 of them. No, there's not, dummy. We can't have 15 core competencies. I think Baldrige does a reasonable job, but they don't tell you how many would be reasonable. If you can have 3 or 4 or 5 core competencies in an organization, you can change the world. Nobody has 3 or 4 or 5. Tell me what you're really good at that your competitors hate you for because you beat them every single time. Let's play baseball. They got the best pitching, they got the best batting, they got the best fielding. There's only 3 core competencies you can have in baseball. Nobody has all 3. Though if you ask them, they would all say they did. But the winner at the end of the year isn't necessarily the person who had a core competency in all 3. They maybe had 2. I don't think you can win without 2. So we claim core competencies in each of our key processes. So we say we have a core competency in order processing, which is one of our key processes. We have a core competency in shipping. I don't frankly know exactly what we claim to be core competencies, but our goal is to have more. So I'd like to have a core competency in leadership development, and we identified that 24 months ago, that we wanted the very best leadership development program anywhere in our industry. Well, what do you have to do that? So Matt Fleming teaches a book club, I teach a book club, we do mentoring, we do ABCs, we do everything we can to make sure that we understand and develop our leaders better than anybody else does. But don't look for very many. I don't know how long I researched on the internet to figure out really what core competencies were and how many you might have. But nobody has very many of them. So we have a core competency in business administration, if you would, in Baldrige. So we're a leading company in America in understanding the Baldrige criteria, which is just a BS in business administration that you can't get from business school. But we are the best probably in America in understanding what Baldrige is. And it's only because we got 40 examiners. You put all that time in, you're going to get better. So, and we're just absolutely serious students of it all the time. So that's not as good of an answer as I'd like to give you on core competencies, but that's as good as I can give you. Well, I'm always speaking from memory here. I'm going to try to get into part 2. I never finished this presentation because I opened up for questions after I finished the first part. So you've got a good handout there. Let's go into part 2. You are now trying to get everybody to understand what you want to do, and now you're beginning to call for innovation out in the workplace. You got to have it. I'm a good innovator, always have been as an entrepreneur. A successful entrepreneur has got to have ideas or they wouldn't be a successful entrepreneur. But we want ideas from everybody else. We want ideas on how to improve the website. We want ideas on how to improve any kind of service, any process in the organization. So we call for that all the time. But you have got to seriously try to get people to put stuff into that bucket and all those places it comes from. So you might have a vendor say, gee, if you guys would order every other week instead of ordering every week, we can do this for you. Oh my gosh, there's a piece of innovation that improves something, or you wouldn't change if it didn't improve. You have to sort through all that stuff. So I don't have any idea how many ideas that we have there, but you have to sort through them and making sure how they line up with your strategic objectives. All this is right in your handout, so if I'm going too fast, let me know. You have to go back and look at the results again. Now this is the meat and potatoes. This is down in the strategic planning team itself. So Matt Fleming and I have looked at it at the top in setting the strategic objectives. Now they're getting it down inside because they're trying to figure out what action plans they need. So if measure number 57 is not hitting its numbers, you may have to identify an action plan to get measure 57 to get up to speed. And you have to look at those results in terms of understanding it. We've looked at it all through the year, and everybody would know that 57 is one that we're going to have to do something about. We can't do anything about this year, but next year we're going to do something about it. Maybe you've got too many people coming to pick up orders and you need a larger customer pickup area. Well, we have that on the strategic planning process to enlarge the customer pickup area. We go through a SWOT analysis down at the department level. And I'll tell you, when we started doing strategic planning, it was such an interesting thing because we'd never done it before until we started Baldrige. Larry Potterfield figured out what to do, and we did it. Simple as that. But you can't sustain an organization in the long term if the boss decides everything. So here we are, and we're in the meeting, and there's 9 direct reports, I believe. And so I'm sitting down with them talking about strategic planning, and they're waiting for me to tell them what to do. Larry, what should we do? I said, well, look, you're the department vice president. Everybody works for you. Nobody works for me except you folks. And you really don't do anything for me. You do things for your processes down inside your department. So you have to figure out what's important in your organization that needs to be changed. Well, we weren't measuring the stuff we needed to measure. We didn't have any idea. So we started from scratch in strategic planning, and none of the vice presidents had any basis in strategic planning at all. I had no basis in strategic planning. But the question is, describe your strategic planning process. Strategic planning was the first category in Baldrige that I read. I was on safari in Africa at the time, and I'm reading this to describe your strategic planning process. Well, Larry tells us what to do, and we do it. So out of that, we developed what you have here. Now, this would have been in 2004 or something like that, 2005. But this is the end result. This is exactly the way we do strategic planning today. And anybody that would do strategic planning this way would get results that they'd be happy with. Each of you can probably take this plan and improve it. And incidentally, that's available on our website. We have a new website that we created called AmericaNeedsBaldrige.com. And you can go to that website and download anything that we've ever done. It's all freeware. You share it. You cut and paste out 40 ways to Sunday if you want to. AmericaNeedsBaldrige.com. We want to share with you. If you're coming through Columbia, Missouri, stop and say hi. But most of you will probably never be able to do that. But we do want to share with you how we do things because we truly believe that America needs Baldrige. So now the departments are conducting their own SWOT analysis to see what needs to happen in operations and finance and merchandising and marketing and so on. You can see the timeline changing. Now we're February, May, and August. These are specific times when we are doing a review of all of this. And this is 12 times a year that we're having the strategic planning meetings. In the February, May, and August meetings, we do this. More innovation, and now we're beginning to stratify and say these are the ones that we can do. This is a smaller bucket of the two. The senior leadership team does this, same as the strategic planning team. Okay. That is all then of part 2, which is to deploy the strategic plan. And Baldrige, I don't much like their terminology when they say deploy this. What in the world does deploy the strategic plan mean? But it tells everybody what you're trying to do so you can get input on it. And then after you figure out exactly what it is, you redeploy. But you have to tell the organization what you're thinking in order to get input. And then ultimately the senior leadership team has to decide what you're going to do. And once you decide exactly what you're going to do, you have to go deploy that back and say, well, this is exactly what we're going to do. Thanks for your ideas. Here's exactly what we're going to do. And you still have to have agility. What questions do you have on that center part there, what we call part 2? Yes, ma'am.
Can you give us a little more information about the methodology that you use to get innovative concepts from your customers?
Yeah. We have the Larry line. And the Larry line, every catalog we send out, here's Larry Potterfield saying, if there's anything that you can think of that we can do to serve you better, please let me know. Here's my phone number. Here's my email address. Now, it's not my real phone number, and it's not my real email address. And I don't answer that. We have a process where that's answered. There's 3 or 4 people trained to respond either directly from Larry Potterfield or on behalf of Larry Potterfield. Larry sent this to me and asked me to answer it for you. So we get, people want money, people want to sell us this. I mean, you get everything. I mean, you can access the president of a company. That's a pretty special thing for people. Well, the only thing that I get is things that I ought to get, okay, because we've got filtering process. So if you call and say, you should send money to my charity, that's never going to get to Larry Potterfield. But if you call and say, I got an interesting thing that you should do, I think you should change this policy, change this process, add this product, all that stuff we want. We get great ideas from customers. But we're a seriously innovative organization, and we're very competitive. And I personally feel like I've been beat when a customer can think faster than I can. So I always want their ideas, but I have a responsibility to think too. I can't abdicate to the customer. So we get innovation ideas from our customers. We get it also from our employees. And we get it on vendor visits and so on when we go do that too at trade shows. So it works just really great. Another question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, in looking at your quote, you do this 3 times a year. You have the innovations and the action plans that you're doing and that you're coming up with new ideas. Throughout the process, at what point do you table it for next year through the next cycle versus change your current direction?
The direction, I think, would never change unless Matt Fleming and I decided to change the direction. So the only question is, what is going to be done to move the company in that direction? That is, building that strategic plan. So we have never changed our direction. I think that there would be circumstances under which we could. The economy is good for Midway USA today. Our business is up. It's been up. It's great business. It's very profitable. So we don't have the economy as an issue for us. It might be for other people. But if there was something going on, if there was legislation that affected our ability to do business or whatever, then we might have to change the strategic objective, the strategic direction. We haven't had to do that. But once the directions are set, then down inside the organization, they are figuring out what they're going to do, always working toward that October deadline when they have to turn the strategic plan into the board of directors. Well, that's me. I don't develop the strategic plan. I get to really to kind of approve it, if you will. I don't send it back and say, no, you need to change this. My primary goal is making sure they have a strategic plan. And then they have to report to the board every quarter their execution of the strategic plan. So everything has got milestones on it. We're going to do Project 47. Here's the milestones on it. Every quarter they have to report to the board where they are on the milestones of all the action plans. That keeps the board informed. That keeps the organization accountable not only for building a strategic plan, but for executing the strategic plan that they promised to execute. Otherwise, frankly, sometimes that stuff doesn't get done. You know that. Yes, ma'am. And I come back right back to you.
Talk about how your technology really now works in the strategic planning process, because you are relying on technology for your business, whether it's your call center or your website. And how does that technology feed more of your strategic planning so that you have a big picture of everything?
I'm going to repeat that. How does technology fit in with the strategic planning process? We do all of our own information systems work there. So the application that we take customers' orders on, we build that. We build our own website. We're very tight. We want to learn rather than simply outsource. So we outsource very little. What Baldrige wants you to do as you go through the strategic planning process is they're looking for integration. They want integration with your budget. They want innovation with your human resource capacity plan. So we have a formal human resources capacity plan. What can we reasonably do? And everybody wants to bite off more than what they can chew. It's like going through a buffet, and they all want to do that. What can you reasonably do? And so we have that capacity plan as part of the strategic planning process, and we're not going to take on stuff that we can't do. Information systems is one of those pieces. E-commerce is one of those pieces. So both of those are cabinet level positions reporting to the president. And there are so many bodies in e-commerce, and there are so many bodies in information systems, and almost everything we do today requires that technology interface. Well, we need to reprogram this. Okay, that's 800 hours. We need to fix this. Okay, that's 700 hours of programming and 18 meetings. This is what we can reasonably do. So it's very, very highly integrated. As we go all through the process, those questions are there. Well, there's no way I can do this and this. That would be Joel Felton, our VP of Information Systems, saying, that I can do 2 major projects, I can't do 3, and I can do 17 smaller projects, but this is how we progress through it. So it's very, very closely integrated, and you have to do that, or you just are eternally frustrated that you can't get the stuff done that you want to do. Ma'am?
How does your leadership team recognize employees for innovation suggestions that are implemented in the organization?
The question is how our recognition and rewards program. The formal part of it, the most formal part of it, is recognition in front of the State of the Business meeting that I'm going to in the morning. So we have a call to all the senior leaders every quarter that says, okay, name names. Who in your organization has done something special in the previous quarter. And this would be completing projects, having achieved some high numbers. It's all performance-based. A lot of times it's team-based. But those names get named. And sometimes I will name names. If I think the president of the company has done something special, or happen to know that a vice president has done something special, maybe I know of an employee that I think has done something special, I'll turn all that in. They sort through it and decide who gets a recognition reward. We give them that. We don't ever give any money, I don't think. We do profit sharing at the end of the year, and we give money away there. We give bonuses to those key drivers of a business. So there's bonuses, profit sharing, but the recognition rewards would be 4 times a year, primarily there. And then there's some that are handed out at the department knowledge sharing meetings the following week, where the department vice president is meeting with people. And those would be lower level performance rewards that maybe don't deserve company recognition. Now, with my back to the wall, I have no idea what time it is. Somebody has to say, Larry. In the back, please.
I just have a quick question. I know Missouri is a highly unionized state. Have you managed to stay union-free?
We're not union at all, and Missouri is a right-to-work state. We're very lean, and we don't have a lot of people, and we pay well. We're right on Interstate 70, so we'd be a good target, but it's not a large business. It'd be a lot of work. If I were a union, I would go look for somebody who's got a lot more people. But with 350 people, and I actually got a whole bunch of service people there. The people are actually taking orders in the contact center, would be one union specialty. The people are actually working in the logistics would be another one, but it's a very, very lean organization, so not been an issue for us. That always comes up on SWOT analysis, but it's never been an issue for us.
What is the profile of your customers? Are they the end user or are they resellers? It sounds like you have a call center with about 250 people in it.
About 80% of our business comes through the web, so 20% of it comes to the call center. We are almost exclusively retail direct to the end consumer. We export maybe 5% internationally through a business model we've got there, and we do reseller business of about 7 or 8%, something like that. So I want to say it's pretty close to 90 that's retail customers. That is almost our entire focus. One of the things we struggle with is what do you have to acknowledge? And somewhere along the line in the Baldrige stuff, we realize that anything that's less than 10% of your energy, your efforts, your budget, or whatever, you can pretty much say is miscellaneous and don't pay attention to it. So we don't. So there's nothing in our strategic planning process that picks up international for the most part. There's nothing there that picks up dealer business, reseller business. So we concentrate on the very bulk of what drives our economic engine, which is the retail customer. So in the contact center, there's probably 60 people working there. We do a pretty quick process on taking orders. They have a lot of non-order phone calls that come in. We do a great job of communicating with them if they order by electronic means or web, what the status of their order is all the way through. But you still get people, do you have, or whatever. And there's still people, old-fashioned people, that simply want to talk to a human being. So we manage the same milestones that everybody else does, the same key measures, time to answer and stuff like that, abandoned calls. And we would be among the best in the nation in those particular measures, abandoned calls and time to answer.
What percent of your product comes from export, from importing versus domestic?
I would say that 100% of our product, now, we import some bullets from Australia and some cartridge cases from there, very, very small. But we primarily buy from Remington and Winchester in the United States, ammunition and components. So we buy from almost all the vendors are from here. Now, that doesn't mean the product is made in America. So you might be buying from somebody in Minnesota and you're buying a gun case. Well, the gun case is made in China. We buy from Minnesota. They're the ones that have the international connection. But our stuff is almost 100% purchased in the United States. Good question, though. Yes, sir. The criteria, what is the criteria for prioritizing the action plans? I think that we almost exclusively use NPV, net present value, rather than ROI. And then you have to use intuition. So there's going to be times when you really seriously put something off for 3 or 4 years because you don't get any ROI on it, or NPV on it, but you really have to do it. So paperless in financial services, we went to there a couple of years ago. We could never justify paperless. I mean, yeah, it saves you a little bit of money, but they weren't going to lay anybody off when we spent $50,000 of energy. All they would be able to promise is they wouldn't have to hire as many people in the future when you went paperless. So we do that, but NPV is what we primarily use, but ROI is good also. We'd use both of them. But always some intuition. We got to do this or else, and I'm sorry I can't put a dollar value on it. How are we doing on time? Okay, great. Other questions? And I'd like to move into this last phase here, and I want to cover something that's keenly important here that is often overlooked. So we've got the strategic plan created now. We're turning it in. It is a formal document. It's a very small document, but it tells you what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. So if we're going to enlarge the area that the customers pick up packages in, there'll be a timeline on everything that's going to go on, the dollar value on it, and so on. Here we're prioritizing them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like you asked. We talked about workforce capacity. It all has to be integrated here as part of this process. Some of this stuff looks like it's going on over a period of time, but all this stuff gets talked about in all 12 of these strategic planning meetings. Do we have the staff to do it? If you wanted to set up a new division and it was a vice president level division, and you frankly don't have a candidate that can be the vice president, and it is your desire to promote from within, which we do almost universally, that's a problem for you. How do you staff that department if you don't have it? Obviously, the budget and the strategic plan have to be hooked together. You can't go charge into a $1 million project without the budget. We're just finishing up a $5 million reflow of all the logistics, just a big roller coaster in there from end to end that takes the incoming stuff and takes it to the stocking area, takes it off of those shelves and down to the packing area. A wonderful project called the Nitro Express, by the way. So you have to integrate it. You're going to get that strategic plan finished up. That's what you're going to do. There's your document. Looks like it's cast in stone. You got to tell everybody what it is. It's a book. You just wrote the book. It's of no value unless somebody reads it. So you have to tell people what it is. That's where you're going to deploy that final strategic plan. Here's the toughest part for people. You got to get it done. You got to do it. I talked to the dean of the engineering school, University of Missouri. He said, Larry, we do a great job of strategic planning. Every year we put a great strategic plan together, and next year we come back and we look at it, we have done nothing. And I said, no, you're only doing half of the strategic plan. The strategic planning process is an end-to-end deal, figuring out what you're going to do and getting it done. And nobody understands that you got to do it. They think, well, we created a strategic plan. What do you mean? How come somebody doesn't do something? Well, the strategic plan creates all those action plans with all those timelines on them and makes sure that it's tied in with the budget and tied in with the workforce, and you can get it done. And holding leadership accountable in an organization is holding them responsible for executing the strategic plan and delivering the value. And you see how long this guy's been digging? He just keeps digging and digging and digging. It's hard work. The one thing I think that Baldrige is keen on, and this is a real challenge in all organizations, let's say that you were going to flip this little switch and you were going to increase productivity in a department by 10% because you flipped a switch. And that was an action plan. Flip the switch is the action plan. And guess what? Your performance went up 10%. Will it stay there? Or will your organization revert back to the old ways and give up all that performance? I guarantee you they will. Or Baldrige wouldn't ask you the question, how do you ensure the sustainability of results? So you have to be measuring it. And on January 1, when it should kick up by 10%, you have to kick it up there and you have to forecast it. Baldrige wants you to forecast. Your forecasting is staying up there. Now your performance has to meet the forecast. Human beings are not designed to do strategic planning. They're not designed to do process improvement. This is hard work. You have to make it work. I've never met a human being that just naturally does all this stuff. But you have to control the results of that strategic plan. And I'll finish with America Needs Baldrige. And I really challenge all of you to go back and reinvent your organizations, get the Baldrige criteria deployed in there. You owe it to America, you owe it to your communities. And start a Baldrige Performance Excellence Group back home. Thank you very much. Thank you.